When you're driving in the car and you're trying to find shade for your arm, you're putting it on the side, you're hanging it down, and sometimes your arm is just always in the sun. There's got to be a better way to keep your arm in the shade while you're driving. My dermatologist did say that they see a significant amount of skin cancers on the left arm versus the right because of the exposure of people driving. I'm Jan Howell from YouMakeItSimple.com, and in this sewing tutorial today I'm going to show you how easy it is to make this DIY sun protection sleeve. It literally is a 10-minute project, and I'm using an upcycled shirt. So without any further ado, let's head on into the house, into the sewing room, and let me show you how it's done. There's just a few materials that you'll need to make your arm sleeve. You'll need a shirt. I like to use upcycled shirts. The kind of shirt, what it's made of, is important, especially if you're looking for UV and sun protection. So obviously the tighter the weave, the better. The best types of fabric to use for sun protection is a synthetic material. A long sleeve cotton t-shirt is not really going to cut it. It has a UV protection probably about 5%, which isn't the greatest. So you want to look for something that has high content of polyester or spandex. So I have a couple different types here. This is a swim shirt, and the content of it is 90% polyester and 10% elastane. If you don't own one of these shirts already, you can go to a thrift store or a secondhand store and usually find them for a really good price. The other things that you'll need, of course, is a pair of scissors, a ballpoint, or a Microtech needle for your sewing machine. Otherwise, if you just use a regular, you might be able to get away with a universal needle, but these type of needles will help avoid creating holes in your fabric when you're sewing. You'll need your sewing machine. You can use a regular sewing machine, or you can use a serger if you want. You'll need a few pins, a rotary cutter and mat. If you have one, comes in handy, but not necessary. And grab a measuring tape. The first thing to do is cut off the sleeve. Just gonna come right there at the inside of that arm pit and cut directly across. Then you'll want to measure your upper arm, see what that is, and then subtract 1 inch. I'm going to cut a strip of fabric for the cuff here at 11 inches. That's 1 inch minus my measurement. And to get that piece of fabric, I'm going to use the same shirt. You can always use a different color if you really wanted to, of a different shirt. I'm going to cut off that hem, cut a strip 4 inches, and then we're going to cut a strip in length. Place the right sides together and sew along that short edge. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Fold the wrong sides together, open up the side seam, line up the side seam, line up your edges, and find the halfway point and mark it with a pin. We're going to find the halfway point on the sleeve and mark it with a pin. Place the cuff over the top of the sleeve, line up the seams and pin it in place. And that cuff is going to be a little bit smaller than the actual sleeve, and that's okay, because when we pull it, that will give it the stretch and the tightness to keep it on your arm. So you'll be working with 3 layers of fabric. I like to just take it to the sewing machine and pull it as I sew, instead of having to add that extra pin. So let's take it to the sewing machine. I have changed the stitch on my sewing machine to the lightning bolt stitch. If you don't have that, you can just use a small zigzag stitch with the width about 1.5. I have taken off my arm of my sewing machine so that I can get my sleeve over the top. If you don't have that, you can just flip and sew from the inside and pull as you go. I'm going to start at the seam I want to make sure that these edges, we're sewing through 3 layers of fabric, and we're really having to stretch that top band quite a bit. So to make sure that I'm stretching it enough, I'm just going to pull it and then start sewing. And on this lightning bolt stitch, the reason we use that is so that when the fabric is stretched, the seam will not pop and break, which is really important and a really cool feature. So if you want to hold from the back and the front while you sew, that's helpful as well. Sew a little bit and then adjust. When I get back to where I started, I'm just going to overlap that a little bit. As you can see, it's gathered in quite a bit. So if you found that the top part of your sleeve is really too much to gather in, and it's a lot bigger than your cuff, but you could angle off that seam so you're taking some of that bulk off at the top. I hope that makes sense. So there you have it, a nice arm sleeve, sun protection to wear in the car. You can make another setup if you want with that other sleeve. Slip it up onto your arm and you're ready to roll. I hope you found that helpful and useful. If you liked the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to check out my other patterns and tutorials on my website, youmakeitsimple.com, for simple sewing hacks and tips. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.